Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm revisiting this piece from 2015 and trying to see how I guess I would conceptualize the same piece now. So I am using Karateki Gansai Tambi's paint set for this. It's one of my favorite paint sets. I've been using it a lot this last year. As you can see, it looks a little bit well loved. In terms of why I am revisiting this piece, it's not because I'm not happy with how the original one came out. It's actually kind of the opposite. I've always really loved that piece and have always kind of wanted to go back to it at some point, but it always felt too soon. But now that it's been 6 years out, I know that I've grown a lot as an artist, and I feel like it could be a really great opportunity to honor that by taking this concept that I did really enjoy and making it fit my current style a bit more. For the original piece, which I'll show again at the end so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, you know, the idea was there, but a lot of the things that I like and don't like clearly stem from inexperience. I was very new at painting. I think I probably had like just the primary color tube sets, which is why it was basically just primary colors. And yet it created this very like fun, chaotic, splotchy look that I actually wanted to try and capture that rustic feeling with the new one. So I'm trying to take like less careful brush strokes throughout this time around and still capture some of that chaos, because I feel like that's kind of what made the first one stand out to me a little bit more, was that I don't think it would have looked as good with perfectly smooth brush strokes and like perfectly layered colors that like blended seamlessly. There was something about the roughness of it that like added to the theme of obsession in some way, and so I wanted to capture that. I also obviously am sticking to the primary colors. I'm using lemon yellow, a blend of two blues. I can't really remember which ones I used. I think it was indigo and cerulean, that sounds right, and cadmium red. So obviously I have greens and purples that I could have used for the greens and purples in the painting, but I thought it would be just fun to stick with what I did in the original one. If I could do it 6 years ago, I can do it now. And besides, I like mixing colors more anyway because it just makes it look a little bit more cohesive than having a lot of different colors. When I had first done this painting, part of the reason was at the time I would often ask my partner for like word prompts, and it led to some very fun experiences. So I would ask him for prompts if I was ever feeling like art block or I didn't know what to draw, and it kind of developed into this fun thing where like even if I wasn't feeling art block, I still wanted to get a prompt from him because it was like an extra piece of inspiration to have that, and it led to some really fun results. But that is where the prompt obsession came from. It was one of the words that he gave me, and so that's why I painted it. I don't get art block as much anymore. And so like there was a period of time where I was just no longer asking him for prompts. I just had an unlimited amount of things that I wanted to paint or draw eventually. But actually lately, since I painted this and recorded it, I have been asking him for prompts more again because it's just kind of fun to not have to... Well, it's just kind of fun to have that source. I also think that, like, you know, he inspires me, and it's fun to think about, like, what was going on in his head. But that's a big tip that I have for anyone who does experience art block is ask someone else for, hey, what should I draw today? Give me a word. And maybe they'll give you something like teapot, and you can just draw a really ornate teapot. Or maybe they'll give you something like the word obsessed, and you'll have to figure out conceptually, what does obsessed look like? In terms of what was going on in my mind when I was interpreting the word obsessed and how I came up with basically, this blue person, I kind of drew into like a feeling. What has obsession felt like for me? And it kind of came very naturally to choose these like very bold colors, because at the time I felt like when you are obsessed, sometimes it can feel almost like sickening, like obsession. With that idea of like sickening, I had this idea of like holding your breath to just like not miss a moment of whatever object has your attention in that moment. And that's where I kind of got the idea for the blue, and the like very flushed cheeks that will come in a little bit. In terms of the like heavy green eyeshadow and like red lips, I was just kind of thinking of like excess. Because obsession to me, like when I'm obsessed with something, I tend to consume it in excess, whether it's a movie that I rewatch like a bunch of times. I don't know, it just seems like obsession to me kind of related to like impulse control, like quantity control problems. And so I was trying to just make something look excessive as well. I tried to have this intense eye contact with the subject because it just, I don't know, for me, it like, for the original painting, I felt very, afterwards, impressed with my skills, because I had been painting for like maybe a month at that point. I don't know. I really like how it came out. I'm very proud of it. But it just felt like this person is looking at you, almost like you are the object of their interest right now. So that's where I came up with that idea. I'm reflecting a lot on perfectionism as I repaint this old piece, because it's definitely not about making it more perfect. And I guess I just want that to be clear to myself and to other people who struggle with perfectionism. I feel thankful that I've never really been much of a perfectionist. There's a lot of stimuli in this world that puts that pressure of these unrealistic expectations, and it can really suck the fun and joy out of things that you love to do. For me, I think maybe because I have 3 older siblings who were all really cool in different ways, I think somehow liberated me from this idea that there was one way to be perfect. But I think that my biggest tip for anyone who is struggling with the pressure of being perfect and the pressure of you can't share your art unless it's perfect, you can't participate in a hobby you enjoy unless you're really good at it, I think that my main tip is respecting your journey and kind of having those accepting those realistic expectations of where you are in your journey right now. For me, it's not that my first version of this was worse. Technically, I know skills that I did not have at the time that I have now that have allowed me to achieve a look that I wanted. In, like, you know, whatever I had in my head, I can more accurately achieve it now than I did at the time. But the old one is not worse than this one. To me, it's a snapshot of where I was in my life at the time. I look at the first version of that and I know, like, oh yeah, I think that was the beginning of when I started painting. And it's special. It's special to have landmarks that we can go back to and see our growth, because we're always growing. And no one and nothing is perfect. So the ability to be gentle with yourself, that like whatever you make is not going to be perfect. I don't know. I guess I've just kind of, that's been helpful for me, knowing that like whenever I start, it's not about making something that is flawless. In art, the flaws are part of it. And, you know, there's things about this one that I actually really love how this painting came out too. And there's things that I know maybe 6 years from now, I kind of already know what I would want to do differently. It's things that I'm just like not very good at right now. So in the first one, I just had the floating head with the neck kind of fading into the background. And this time, I know that like I find a little bit more comfort in some structure, which is why I gave the blobular bottom of the bust instead of it just fading out. But I think if I were to do this again with like looser watercolors, I think that because Kuretake Gansai Tambe is a little bit more gouache-like, it provided an extra challenge in doing that. But, you know, I still love how it came out, and that's what's important. It doesn't have to look exactly like what it looks like in your head for it to be really special. I also want to give a quick kudos to the version of me from 2015 because I think that I was a lot braver. The open jaw, I tried sketching it out so many times this time around and I could not get it to look pretty. So I elected to close her mouth and write obsessed on her lips, which I don't hate the idea because, again, with the idea of excess, something about tattooing the word obsessed onto your own body feels excessive, right? And yet, I know that it's stemming from a place of I didn't know how to make it look pretty. And so I didn't do it, but when I had no skills and no expectations whatsoever, I didn't let that stop me from doing the vision that I had because I didn't think any of it was going to look pretty to begin with. And so in that way, I think that as you gain some skills, it can be a little bit limiting because you don't want to limit your creativity with it. Well, here is the finished product. Thank you for sticking around and watching me recreate this. Both of these paintings have a very special place in my heart, and it was really fun to revisit this piece. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.